I'm Fadi Ghandour. I am passionate about entrepreneurship, about education, and about youth and youth empowerment, and addressing the challenges of people that are living on the margins. I'm very happy to be on Voices of the Future.
We are absolutely honored, privileged, and delighted to have my dear friend Fadi joining us today. I have seen him over the last 20, 25 years with admiration, with awe, with all sorts of humility, because I've seen what Fadi has done, both in terms of achievement, but in terms of contribution. And I think he's not doing justice to himself by just not mentioning some of his amazing achievements. And in those achievements, I think helping communities, helping entrepreneurs, helping startups, building ecosystems, basically pushing the boundaries, breaking the barriers, and ensuring that the world is a better place. So Fadi, welcome, firstly. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Tariq. I'm very happy to be with you.
I hope I did justice in my introduction.
You always embarrass me in all the interviews, so I'm not gonna comment on this one, but absolutely, thank you so much.
You're most welcome. Fadi, before we go forward, let's do a flashback in the classic terms of Hollywood. Can we talk a little bit about little Fadi and how he grew up, just to set the context, and what inspired you when you were a kid?
So look, I grew up in a very dynamic house, if you want. I am the one boy in a family of women, so that shaped my character. My sisters, my mother, and I had a very active and a very, if you want, in some ways, revolutionary father in terms of his ideas, of his way, of the way he thought of the world, and the way he let us be what we are, left us alone to discover ourselves. And that's quite powerful in a society that's very patriarchal. So I grew up a bit rebellious, maybe a bit more rebellious than I would admit, and in school, in class, in everything I did, I always thought that one needs to rebellious in the sense that things can be better. You can act on what you see that does not work, and you try to fix something or do something about it. So, and that shaped my character, and that's how our house was built as a family.
Fast forward into Aramex and how you started there, literally from a post office all the way up. Just a quick context in terms of that, please.
So look, the Aramex story shaped my life. Obviously, it's I would call it one of the ultimate entrepreneurial story in anywhere, really. So we launched out of Jordan and went global with it, and very few companies would have launched out of Jordan and have gone global with it. So it's a story of meeting challenges in the very early days when there was very little venture capital, when talent would not be attracted to a startup. So how do you attract talent? How do you bring in a solution into a market that resisted solutions at that time? So there were regulatory challenges, and there were all sorts of other issues that any startup could face, from access to capital to again, the issue of talent. So we went out saying that there is a problem in delivering packages in a fast way, very simple, across the region, specifically here in the Arab world. And we want to go out and conquer it. I started this straight out of college. So a young boy, very innocent and very naive. And it takes naive and innocent people to actually think that they can solve major challenges, and jumped into it. and then iterated all the way through, pivoted here and there to discover the right formula that actually works, shoestring, and attracted a bunch of really incredible people who were mostly straight out of college like me, who were also as innocent as I am, who were also sons and daughters of this region, who thought we could do and build an incredible organization and a company out of this region with its people. And so I couldn't recruit people with experience because they said, who the heck is going to be able to compete with DHL, right?
Yeah.
So it only took those rebels that looked like me in many ways to come out and say, okay, we're your soldiers.
Indeed, I love this concept of the innocence of youth and enthusiasm, because I can quite understand that. And to some extent, Fadi, I try to capture that even to this day. And even to this day, I ask innocent questions because I've tried not to lose that side of me. And my mentor and coach, Professor Tony Buzan, who's also featured in the book, posthumously because he's passed away, he said that to me: never lose your childlike innocence, never lose that curiosity, never lose that ability to ask completely stupid questions.
And it is so critical, Tariq. I mean, look, there's a big question whether experience matters, right? So people that are my age and your age would be a bit more conservative, a bit more reserved in our age, saying, okay, no, maybe not. The innocent and the curious are the ones that are changing the world. And that's why we need to, as we discuss other things, you and I, is when we discuss education, where does curiosity sit? How do we allow people to free think so that they can solve rather than get stuck on what's written? Use your brain. And so the brain, God gave us brain so that we can do miracles with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Fadi, in terms of my innocence, I was involved in a project about 6 years ago, the European Union, on drones. And we were looking at writing a drones manifesto. And because as a futurist, I talk about trust and ethics, and we'll discuss that in a second. And I innocently proposed to the committee, to the board, he said, why can't we have guardrails on drone companies and basically say drones will not be allowed to kill human beings, full stop. I mean, this is it. I mean, nuclear weapons are not allowed to kill human beings. Drones will not be allowed to kill human beings, full stop. And they all looked at me as if I was from a different planet. And I'm saying, isn't this obvious? We are inputting everything inside a drone. And guess what? The killer app in a drone is killing humans. And to me, I think that is rather sad that we have normalized all of these things, and just a lot of the tech companies, especially the big ones, are just running away with this technological revolution, I would say, and the technological tsunami, because it's just coming, and we just become normalized. Yeah, fine, drones will do this, and AI will do that, and generative AI will do that, and we'll figure it out as we go along. I'm not so sure we can just figure it out. I think we need to put guardrails and stuff early on.
I absolutely agree with you, because, for some reason we've split, or maybe we've been built like that. So societies and countries have this incredible friction among them. So there's always this negative competition in many ways, rather than thinking that competition is to improve things. And there is, companies, lots of companies are actually going out and because of competition are able to innovate. But because of this friction among societies that we have seen in the past 20 years, you end up with technology that is harmful. So drones, drones were supposed to solve all sorts of problems, and they do solve all sorts of problems. But the major use of the drones nowadays is to have unmanned, flying objects that are dropping bombs. And and it becomes a cheap technology because, it's very easy for anybody to build it. So this is just an example of AI is fantastic, obviously, and GPT has shown us what it could do. But there's always a but. So we need to think about the but, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it takes us into all sorts of scenarios.
Yeah, I always say that AI is almost like a weapon of mass destruction, if not managed properly, because all the institutions we have, United Nations, World Bank, IMF, World Health Organization, etc., were created 80 years ago for problems 80 years ago. And they are not able to cope with today's issues. So we need guardrails around AI. We have it around nuclear fission. Why don't we have around AI? And we don't. And 3, 4, 5 companies have really figured it out. Maybe 10 companies. Another 100 companies behind them are very good at it. And the rest of us are just chasing. And we are the worker bees.
We're watching. We're observers here, and the discussion around all technologies that affect humanity should have all of humanity represented there, not only the powerful, not only the state, the non-state actors, the non-profit people, the civil society people have to be at the table discussing these issues, rather than having the richest man in the world and the second richest man in the world and the third richest man in the world talking to the most powerful country in the world about these guardrails. And they forget that, 90% of the world does not live where they live. And so we need to have that serious discussion here if we're going to have AI serve humanity.
Indeed. And these 3 richest men in the world who are controlling AI and they're also controlling the narrative, because they also own the largest media companies. And therefore, if the media is compromised, that's the narrative we absorb.
Totally. And, in today's world, and with the challenges that and the wars that we are witnessing right now, we see how narratives are shaped. And we see the frustration between a narrative that is in far away in Western countries, let me say, while the rest of us are questioning, is there a logic to it? We're questioning all sorts of things, right? So as we talk about the future, and again, you just mentioned about certain things that were made for 80 years ago. And so the rules-based world came out after World War II. And everything about post-World War II is being questioned now. So are we, and the West in many ways does not address these issues and these challenges anymore. And so you have half of humanity, if not more, coming out and saying, who do these rules apply to? Are we part of this narrative, or are we not part of this narrative? And are we participating in it? Or is this just talk?
Yeah, absolutely. Fadi, what are you doing these days? What is consuming your time? I can see the passion.
I am, as you know, a serial entrepreneur. It's nonstop for me. So I'm since I've left Aramex as the CEO, and then eventually as a board member, I launched a venture capital fund, investing in early stage technology companies in the region. That has evolved a little bit into an evergreen vehicle that I continuously invest in young startups, mostly in the region, but a little bit global, looking for these young guys who are also addressing challenges that might look like me in the very early days, and maybe filling the gaps that I had felt over the decades in my challenges, from mentorship to access to capital, to access to markets, to helping them with regulators. So using my experience, my access to ease their process of building their entrepreneurial endeavor. So I'm doing a lot of that, and I am exercising every day. So you need to know that it's part of my life. So I wake up, drink my coffee, and I am exercising right after.
Excellent. Let me share a data point with you. This was a study done at Babson College in Boston in 2017. And it says basically that 75% of the companies that were born in the 20th century will no longer exist in the year, they said 2026, but then it was extended to 2030. It was reconfirmed by McKinsey, Accenture. So just restating that again, 75% of the companies born in the 20th century will no longer exist in 2030. more importantly, 50% of the companies replacing those 75% haven't been born today. So the work and the space that you're in, startups, entrepreneurship, new thinking, and the speed at which things are growing is so massive and so rapid. I mean, ChatGPT last year was a classic example. Do you feel our region is tapping into this exponential curve of entrepreneurship and startups, or are we still stuck with government organizations and incumbent organizations and family companies resisting really, really hard?
So the resistors are going to lose. So I'm going to start with that statement. And look, here's what needs to be done and what is happening in our region. One, we need to embrace that the world is going digital and going digital exponentially. So we've always talked, I've always talked that change is the only constant.
Yeah.
Change is exponential. So it's not the constant. Yeah. It's exponential and it's there all the time. So that needs to be embraced. And the issue that all incumbents either invest and transform themselves, or the young ones are going to transform them and eat their lunch and replace them. And so we see a dynamic happening here. And so there are 3 or 4 things that the region is doing and realize it. And our region specifically, because it's dependent on oil and dependent on income coming from oil. So the region has realized that. The leadership of the region has basically said, we need to build our economies for the post-oil world. And you hear all the and you see all the plans. Yep. Vision 2030, Vision 2071, they're all about who we are post-natural resources, post-oil.
Yeah.
And so that requires capital, and sovereign wealth funds are finally investing in regional technology companies, building and government building technology companies. I have no problem, by the way. I think government is the first risk taker in building the future.
Sure.
Because the private money is always risk a little bit more risk averse. So people say, maybe venture capital can change the world. No, venture capital can be a partner in changing the world. It cannot be alone the world changer. So as you know, DARPA, the Department of Defense research arm in the US, was at the core of a lot of the technology that happens in 100%. The US.
Yeah.
And these are, government is a long-term investor in society. It doesn't think of immediate profitability or short-term profitability. It 100%. Thinks the well-being of society. Venture capital, as much as I have some respect for it, is very short-term. It lives 10 years at a time.
And it's brutal.
10 years at a time might change the world, but it's not going to be really as effective. So a partnership between a government that is going to make capital available, change the rules and regulations to make sure that the companies of the future are going to be available and enable the next wave of investors to tag along and enable the high net worth individuals, the family offices, to say, if the state is doing that, then we're going to do that. So the family, as the state invests, as the state enables, then the venture capital comes in, then the big families come in, and they either invest to transform themselves, or they're going to be losing that game completely. And so I think our region is there, and because technology is so exponential, you don't have to go through the whole process of every single phase of technology. You can jump into the AI world immediately and hit the ground running. And I'll tell you, most of our young people that are popping out now, the digital first people, right, the 10-year-olds, and are already in tune with this stuff. So even if our schools is not teaching this stuff, we are these young kids are absorbing knowledge from the ubiquity of it. Right? Again, the education system needs to also catch up. Because if you don't, I am also, as an individual, as a young boy, if you want, going to school, I am probably ahead of my teacher if he doesn't catch up to what is happening in the world. So and so it's a continuous dynamism. that I think the leaders of our region realize that.
Yeah.
And I hope all of the region realizes that, because we have some failed states around also that worry me. And you can't live in a safe neighborhood when you are also surrounded with some failed states. So all the issues need to be addressed. You can't only the security, stability, the politics of it needs to be addressed, because and we didn't even talk about global warming, and so it affects us all, whether we are in a rich country or in a poor country. It does not discriminate. It goes everywhere.
Yes, it does, and it's affecting all of us. You preempted two of my questions, and one of them was, and maybe you want to reiterate that, is that are the schools and our learning systems at this moment in time, education systems, are they preparing our young people for the future? My thought is pretty clear on that, and that will be part of my thesis. Is I don't believe they are. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think not only in our region,
because internationally, yes,
it's globally. I think each region has advanced to a different phase, but the whole education system, as you said earlier, was built 100 years ago, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Going to school, taking off in summers, the age groups and the subjects you're studying. I mean, these are the university, the concept of a university. Going physically to the university. I mean, there's the solution is not one or the other.
Yes.
But the issue that I think is essential is that there needs to be deep discussion, again, a societal discussion about these things. The educators need to understand they are not discussing this among themselves does not address the issues. You need to bring all the stakeholders into the discussion. You don't know better. I mean, this concept that somebody knows better than the other in societal issues, unless everybody is at the table, we're not going to be addressing it. So are we talking to everyone? No, we're not. Is there a global discussion around it? Maybe there are talking heads that are experts in certain areas who think that they know what the solution is. I think we need new systems. We need new organizations that are in tune with the 21st century challenges rather than being stuck. And, big organizations, with all due respect to the United Nations and its organizations, it was built also for a different era. Very difficult to move heavy organizations into different areas. Indeed. So how do you create these small, let's call them guerrilla units that go out and get you to really question everything that you do for the betterment and the well-being of society. I mean, these are, and education is at the core of it.
Yeah, I mean, these are...
I was talking to Amjad Mas'ad from Replit. Amjad is a Palestinian American that I've known a long time ago. He was born in Jordan, grew up in Jordan, and went and is building one of the most incredible software-based companies, and which is about the ease of coding, the ease of programming. And he told me, he was here in Dubai a couple of weeks ago, and he told me, now you can talk to your computer and it will code.
Yeah.
So, which means you give it commands and it will actually do the thing. So this whole concept about let's have all our kids learn how to program is suddenly overnight gone.
Yes. Yeah, right? I mean, by 2029, basically, I think coding as we know it will almost disappear, or it'll be near free. So therefore, human intervention will only be around critical thinking and context and balance, as opposed to the core work.
Exactly, and we need to think about the jobs of the future very seriously.
I'm going to get to that exactly. My next question really was that because of all of this digitization and technologies, anything that can be digitized will be, because it'll be 1,000,000 times faster and 1,000,000 times cheaper. But anything that cannot be digitized, love, compassion, harmony, critical thinking, judgment, trust, ethics, heart, soul, spirit, imagination, creativity, these to me will be 1,000,000 times more valuable. But shouldn't our education system and our businesses and our future jobs and stuff like that be built around those values and those attributes rather than coding or some of the basic. We need the STEM piece, but we also need all of these human values, because this is how we'll shape our future.
Completely. And again, human values need to be discussed very seriously.
Yes.
So humanity, and how does politics interfere into it? How does religion interfere into it? And how do we make sure that there is this base? There is a base that we all have to agree on, so that we have a mutually comfortable future, rather than being exclusionist. The exclusionism is what worries me around. So, or those people who claim, say the civilized world, right? So, what's the civilized world, right? Who defines it? What does civilization mean? Which civilization are we talking about? I mean, these are in today's world, for the issues that you've discussed about humanity, love, coexistence, respect, compassion. Are in a world where nobody defines the civilized or non-civilized world, that is a world that lives in harmony and accepts its diversity.
You
have to accept and embrace diversity on a global basis, not only in our own countries.
Let's talk a little bit about your investments and all the technology space that is growing. One of the observations, again, as a futurist that I have, Fadi, is that we don't have verticals anymore. Everything is becoming a horizontal. Telcos used to be a vertical. Now they're in fintech and health tech and insurtech and everything else, and vice versa. Banks are getting into other areas, and I mean, telcos, and a good example is Etisalat with EAND, and how they're investing in and creating some edge businesses around that. With all of this merging of technologies and overlapping of technologies and the boundaries getting gray, where are you in terms of looking at an investment strategy and structure while you're doing, all of this dynamic is happening?
Look, so we live in a region that is digitizing everything that has to do with the citizen. Right. So our experience as consumers, entertainment, and solving every issue that revolves around me as a citizen, right? My phone solves all the day-to-day issues that I have, or the things that I want to do. And so most of the startups and the technology companies in the region are addressing that. So payments, e-banking, e-commerce, last mile transportation, and delivery, et cetera, so that the consumer world and the world of the individual, including education, by the way. So I'm saying everything that has to do with us is online today, already digitized. And most of the companies are basically that are coming out of this region are thinking for solving of the issues that we face and the problems that we face within our societies. So that's all that's happening now. Big challenge in the region, by the way, and in many other countries of the world, outside of maybe China, US, and India, then, is that deep technology that is solving for medical, biotech, artificial intelligence is not produced here yet, because our education system was not built around research and development.
Correct.
And our many education systems are not around that. So the university, the symbiosis between the university, society, business, and capital in the West, specifically in the United States of America, does not exist seriously here. It's just starting. And so we're not seeing the startups from the region that are solving the deep problems of the world in terms of, all sorts of issues relating to health and to, for instance, environment. It's just starting now. It's happening somewhere else. And so I think there's a massive opportunity there. How do we create accelerators and incubators, and how do we make sure that our science and our mathematics and our medical education systems actually have research in them that addresses the problems that society faces here, at least our problems, right? So obesity and cancer and other issues that are prevalent in our society needs to have a local solution.
Yeah. We touched upon climate change, and climate change, we have a burning planet at this moment in time. And so if you take a globe and you divide it into half, if half the planet is literally where we are today is burning, because there are two things, growth and profit. And there is this drive for growth. Hypercapitalism is clicking in. Consumerism is very, very much there. So you talk about VCs. VCs are looking at growth and capital profit. We talk about the triple bottom line, and I know you've been to the World Economic Forum, and I have big question marks on that also. But the people, planet, profit. That's fine, but I am now looking at two more. And the fourth to me is prosperity, community and prosperity. And the fifth P to me is peace. So the new way that we need to look at our world, whether it's climate change or whatever, is not just the growth and profit piece, which is great, but in addition, we're also looking at planet, prosperity, and peace. I know it's really big stuff, but what are your thoughts? I know we're aligned, but I just want to hear from you.
Look, I mean, at the end of the day, making sure that the world is livable and a world that's getting warmer and warmer and warmer is a big issue. So you're going to have weather migrants. You're going to have refugees. You're going to have people that cannot live in certain regions of their own countries. And so how is the world going to address that? So, and if the technology is not going, if we are, technologists and futurists who think that technology is going to solve everything. So, and there's this alarm that says the world is really heading there.
Yeah.
So, so when you talk about peace, when certain people cannot, certain regions of the world are not habitable anymore.
Yes.
And when you talk about xenophobia and building walls, and so what sort of peace are we talking about? I mean, and the sun and the warmth of the world, you cannot build a wall that says, there's this region that is going to be hit by it and this other region cannot. Everybody is being affected one way or another. And so, again, absolutely, peace and prosperity are at the core of this story. But again, these are big issues. I mean, they're very big issues, and you and I cannot be completely idealistic about it.
Indeed.
But what we need to do is to really have, and we saw that in COP28 here, and so the seriousness of an oil and gas country to basically come out like the UAE, come out with one, hosting COP28, and number two, committing to investing in solutions for the 21st century climate challenge. So,
I was encouraged by that, Fadi, but it didn't go far enough, because the largest group of people were all the big financial organizations. They were all here, Vanguard and BlackRock, and they were all hanging around. And all the big oil and gas companies were here also. So, forgive me for being a bit skeptical, but as long as the oil and gas people have $5-6 trillion worth of assets looking after their revenues and growth, they are going to keep slowing everything down, and they have big lobbies and they have big resistance points and things like that. But that's for another day. But
but I think also that a lot of the oil and gas countries are living in extreme heat in certain times, and so there is an immediate need, even if you want to talk about selfishness, right? So there is a need to be able to have your own, wherever you live, to be a livable place in terms of the environment, right? And if you want to continue to populate the countries that you've built, and to continue to be an attractive area for people to live in, then climate is at the core of this story.
Indeed. Fadi, as we go into the future, one final question, and then we'll go into your 100th birthday. And my final question is, as a futurist, one of my first slides that I put up there, and I asked the question to the audience, is what is going to define our future? And my thesis is that the future is going, and people say technology, this, that, and the other, and I just say, no, it's something a bit more fundamental. And to me, the future is going to be defined by trust. and underpinned by truth and ethics, because without trust, because there's a trust deficit within institutions, organizations, and so on. And without truth and ethics, our AI and everything else is going to be compromised, and with the moral values that go behind that. Do you think I'm on the right track with trust, truth, and ethics, with values underpinning every single thing that we do as we define our future?
Completely. I mean, this is also the world that also appreciates the commons, right?
Yeah.
There is commonality. There is sharing. There's no exclusivity. There is inclusivity.
Yeah.
And a world that is inclusive is a world of trust. And the part of the problems that we see in the world today and the challenges is the lack of trust. And so it's all about exclusivity. It's you're either with me or you're either against me. And so you see it even in the most advanced of countries that want to spread democracy around the world and spread all sorts of rules and regulations around the world because they think they're the best, but they have their own challenges internally. And there is this incredible exclusivity among them. You know, I am right, you are wrong. And so yes, maybe there are certain things, but where are we in agreement in the middle? And that requires trust. Requires trust, because in trust there is the common good.
Let's get into a time machine, into a little capsule, and we'll take you to your 100th birthday. And we're celebrating Fadi's 100th birthday. So what do you see outside your window? What are we celebrating? What are we doing?
But on my 100th birthday, if I get there,
you'll get there.
If I look out of the window, I'd like to see grandchildren.
Okay. Yes.
So I'd like to see them living in peace in a country that is and the world that is peaceful, in a world that is that has little wars in it. Understand that there is a commonality in humanity, and they are going to be worrying about how do you solve the problems of the next 100 years rather than continue to look backwards. So grandchildren that are not going to be bogged down by history, but actually free to solve for the future. And so history is full of conflict, and the future may be much more optimistic. And so that's a simple, straightforward. I mean, I can't think of anything else really to think about.
But it's beautiful. No, it's beautiful. You spoke about family, you spoke about love, you spoke about community, and you're optimistic. I think those values by themselves are huge. You know, I've interviewed over 100 people and 1,000 people and in this question, there is never anybody who sort of says, well, you know, by that time I'll have my second billion, or by that time I'll have this. Money becomes so irrelevant by the time you get into wisdom and thought. And I think that's one of the things that comes through.
You know, at the end of the day, you need a house, you need to be able to have food at the table, and to be secure in the country and the city and the community that you live in. Absolutely. And you need to be able to love your neighbor. Very simple.
Indeed.
And the neighbor loves you back.
That is true. And that is a much, much bigger question than on the surface. So if you were to put a message in a bottle, a one-liner, Fadi, for the future generations to pick up and see and find that bottle, what would that be? A simple message.
Say, if we failed, please know that we really tried.
Wonderful. Thank you for demystifying failure. Fadi Ghandour, you are an absolute superstar, and I'm so privileged to have you. It just flows with you. It's just so natural. Thank you very much for being on Voices of the Future. Thank you very much for being a positive, influential voice into the future. And as the book comes out, as the platform develops, we are going to be making a difference together. And that's the purpose of me doing all of this, is not just to gather information, but it's actually to go out there and be mad. Mad stands for make a difference. And that's what I do.
Thank you.
So thank you, sir.
Thank you, Tariq, for including me. I am honored, and I really appreciate your friendship over the years.
Thank you, sir.